Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here Wednesday afternoon in Star Vegas. Beautiful day. A little bit cool, but it is a beautiful day here. A lot going on. We got a lot to get caught up with. I may give you a little potpourri to kind of start the show. But, we got to talk about last night's men's loss at Auburn. Not totally unexpected, but still very disappointing. Would have liked to see, a little better result there, but that's obvious. We all pull for the same team and hope for the same things, and that's for Mississippi State to win. There may not be much else we agree upon, but we do agree upon that. Of course, Mississippi State women getting ready to hit the road and head to Knoxville, Tennessee for a big ball game there. Listen, I want to give a tip of the cap to the folks of Enterprise, Mississippi. I don't know that I've ever been to Enterprise. I've been to Quitman, I've been down to, Lauderdale, places like that, a little south of Meridian. Went yesterday. We had a friend that whose son passed away. I spoke a little bit about that earlier this week. And went down for the visitation because if we can't support each other in times like these, what are we doing with our lives? I mean, what else is more important than that? I was so incredibly impressed. I think everybody in Clark County and Lauderdale County turned out. It was incredible. I got there right as visitation started. It took about 2 hours to get through the line. That's not a complaint. That's a compliment. I mean, incredible support for that community. Our friend Daniel, big Bulldog, and dealing with some tragedy. He and the rest of the family, of course. And I just wanted to point that out because it's so easy at times to feel alone in our grief and in our pain and whatever we're dealing with. I deal with those kinds of things too. I've shared with you guys before, if I really want to feel sorry for myself, I just log on Twitter. There's enough people out there providing me with lessons in humility whenever I want them. But the reality of it is we are all experiencing the shared experience, and that's living life together. And the folks of Enterprise, you guys are great. You guys are great. And it was very humbling to see so many people turn out and very patiently wait in some very long lines to offer their condolences, their love, their support for somebody, dealing with an unspeakable tragedy. It's incredible. I mean, it truly is. And, the worst times tend to bring out the best in people. And that's what we saw yesterday. And Enterprise Baptist Church, First Baptist Church, a great church. I don't know how new that church is. Beautiful facility. And, I feel like it's the least we can do, when something like this happens, just to have presence and to remind people that they're not alone. That's the reality of life. It's so much. Some of us are going to die from terminal uniqueness. That's just kind of the reality of it. Some of us are going to feel like, hey, nobody understands. But the truth of the matter is people care. They don't always show it. I'm surrounded by some people. It's so funny. I joke with you guys too. I'll meet you guys out at a book signing or a ball game, and people make such a big deal out of stuff. And I got enough people in my life too that remind me I'm not quite so special. There's some balance there for sure. But our thoughts and prayers and our heart goes out to Daniel and the family and to everybody impacted by this tragedy. It's just one of those things, as I shared yesterday, there are some things in life you never get over. You just kind of get on with it. And this is one of those. And, a lot of sad kids, dealing with the reality and the dark side of life at a very tender age. And it changes them. It does. It changes them. And I don't think there's any question. So John Benefield, we remember you. And we will do our best to learn from this, but also, too, to support those who love you. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I love Bulldog Burger Company. I'm thinking that's probably the plan for tomorrow. I don't know if it's a lunch or a dinner event, but that's the plan. I want to have some Bulldog Burger Company in my life. It's one of the great things about Starkville. We support local business. We support independent business in Starkville. You don't have a lot of national chains here because, quite simply, we just don't support them. We support our neighbors. And so the fine folks at Bulldog Burger Company are my neighbors. And so we want to support them every chance that we get. I'm so happy to partner with them for so many years. It's so interesting. Some of the people say, Steve, our branding is improved by advertising on the Boneyard. And that makes me very proud that they have some brand awareness around this state because of their affiliation with us. I was a customer of theirs long before they were an advertiser on this show. Very, very proud to be a partner with them and their success. It all started out with just the one location on University Drive. Now you've got a great place on Gloucester Street in Tupelo, and now the Ridge and Flowwood area and the Lake Harbor Drive location. Whether you're in town or on the way to town, be sure and stop by and check them out and have the spring rolls as your appetizer. That'll make you and everybody around you better looking. In addition to that, you can have a great restaurant quality hamburger, and maybe you're not feeling like a burger and everybody else is. But that's okay. You can go in there and eat fresh. You can have a BLT salad. I like it grilled. You may prefer it fried. Mine's always dripping in ranch dressing because I'm from South Mississippi. That's how things work. It's true. Get that chocolate shake on the ride home. You'll ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. Okay, some breaking news, as you guys are well aware probably by now. At long last, former Georgia wide receiver Anthony Evans is now a Mississippi State Bulldog. And class started today. The first team meeting is today. A lot of cool stuff happening. And now Anthony's going to be a part of this. Now, Anthony's a guy, too, kind of battled a hamstring issue this year at Georgia. But he is an elite punt return guy and has been kind of a underutilized wide receiver there. And I kind of liken this a little bit to the Mekhi Polk thing, even though they play different positions. Mekhi Polk was a guy that didn't do much at all at Cal, and certainly he was a product of the air raid, but he came in here and set school records. I'm not going to bestow those type of obligations on young Anthony Edwards III, but I do think this is a guy to come in here and be a Mississippi State success story. And so kind of moving along to that, native of Converse, Texas, highly recruited out of high school, and did some interesting things at Georgia. It's Georgia, right? And there's a lot of competition up there. So in 2023, he played in 8 games, caught 4 passes, 35 yards, and a touchdown. This past year, played in 11 games, 9 catches, 88 yards. So not a ton of production. And there are people, that's a thing that a lot of people say, Steve, hey, not a bunch of production. And I get it. He also started as a kick returner, 11 games, 7 returns, averaged 28 yards a return. Also a punt returner. 4 punt returns for 55 yards along a 28. And then this past year, 17 returns for 129 yards along a 46, averaging 7.6 yards a return. And so in many respects, he has kind of been expected and targeted to play the Kevin Coleman role. A guy didn't come in here and help in a return game and be the slot receiver. And when you look at what State's done historically at slot receiver, that's kind of been a tenet of the offense even before Jeff Levy became the primary play caller. But if you look at what Leb's done, and again, I think you look at the Kevin Coleman situation, he tripled his production in this offense on a 2-10 team, and they're on all SEC honors. And I think you can replicate that. I mean, Kevin Coleman, again, it wasn't like Kevin Coleman just kind of came out of nowhere. Kevin Coleman was highly sought after as a prospect. It's kind of the same situation here. Similar build, similar skill set, and what a great week to 10 days for Chad Bumpus to kind of close this thing out. And that was one of the things that I was a little bit worried about down the stretch. I was like, we need to get some more wide receivers, but also, too, we don't need to limp across the finish line when it came to portal. So we have 23 now, and then you look, the last 4 commitments of this portal class, all wide receivers. Cam Thompson from Northern Illinois, Marcus Allen from Eastern Michigan, previously with Wisconsin for 2 years. He was a Power 5 recruit as well. Aiden Williams, of course, you know him well from Richmond High School, went to Ole Miss. And now Anthony Evans. And so 3 of those 4 guys with P5 experience, or P4, whatever we're calling it these days. So really good closing stretch for Chad Bumpus. And I think some of our fans have been a bit unfair to Chad. About halfway through there, I guess, like, hey, well, we didn't take this guy. And you didn't know that guy probably had some off-the-field baggage. Maybe you didn't know that. Maybe you didn't know that. We didn't take this guy. And then, you didn't understand as part of our due diligence, we find out there's some things that are concerning. Guys, we're not trying to bring in headaches. And in order for us to take the next step as a program, this is where we are. This is the reality of where we are at Mississippi State. And this may be the case for the next few portal classes. We have to go out and get the ascending G5 guy with production, or the Power 5 guy that maybe has been underutilized. And that's what we got. And you look all up and down this now 23-man portal class, and that's what you're going to see. Guys from a lower level that have proven themselves at a lower level that are now ready to take the next step into the Power 5, or perhaps some Power 5 guys that did not maybe have the opportunity to get on the field because maybe more talented players are playing ahead of them. Now, the self-loathing Mississippi State guys say, I don't want any cast-offs from other programs. Well, that's the reality of life. We had a bunch of guys that left our program too that were encouraged to go find playing opportunities elsewhere. And so we're looking for potential from these Power 4 players, looking for production from these G5 guys. And I believe we've gotten that. And, I think we're officially done right now unless something crazy happens late. You still got the NAFL championship game to play on Monday. Those guys will have 5 days to enter the portal. And then, we'll see. If a difference maker comes along, and of course it doesn't matter. We could sign 40 players, and somebody could make a well-placed comment. Is like, hey, Steve, we could probably still use another corner or still use another lineman. That's it. And that's not being greedy. You just want State to win, and I get it. But I like Anthony Evans. He hadn't been rated yet in the portal. We'll get him rated. He was a 92 composite out of high school. He won't be that. He'll probably be 86, 87 when it's all said and done because of production. But again, just kind of running through here, we talked about this when we were signing all those junior college guys that there was a plan in place. That plan has now been executed. So now we can kind of take a look and see how well did we execute our own plan. All right, let's start with Javen Williams. Very productive guy at Kennesaw State. So again, the ascending G5 guy. Jerron Manning, a former product of Colin Community College, goes to ODU, has a big year there. Again, the ascending G5 guy. Red Hibbler, one of the more accomplished guys from the Power 4 that we've been able to navigate and convince to come to Mississippi State and committed to State, pretty much sight unseen. He hadn't been here in a couple of years. But Red Hibbler was the guy that, led NC State in sacks in 2023. A little bit banged up this year. But a piece, a solid piece. Probably a 5-tech when it's all said and done. Nevaeh Sanders, another pass rushing specialist. And when we took him, people were like, Steve, come on. This guy's a piece. It's not going to be an every down player. It's going to be a guy you put out there on 3rd and 15 and say, kid, line up at a 7-tech and he can go get the quarterback. That's what he did well. And again, his numbers, pass rush to snap ratio through the charts. Well, off the charts, as we should say. This is a guy that really knows how to get after the quarterback. Vernon Thompson, again, Power 4 guy from Oklahoma, guy that Levy knows well. One of the fastest kids in the country. Maybe a bit underutilized there. And, of course, Venable saw a ton of receivers. I think 6-7 receivers transferred out of the program. You add Jerron Glover, another guy. Video's really good. Just hadn't had a lot of opportunity. Jesse Rommel, offensive tackle from James Madison. A lot of snaps. Again, the ascending G5 guy. Luke Kromenhoek, one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the portal. You replace Michael Van Buren with him. I think it's an even trade. Darion Gillette, guy from Texas. Linebacker. Big physical guy. Just hasn't had a lot of opportunity. Jalen Smith of Tennessee, he has had some opportunity and he's had some production. The most productive of the Power 4 guys that we have so far. Jerry Bledsoe from Texas. Another guy that was highly recruited out of high school 6'4", 290. A guy that we think can do some interesting things. Kobe Keenum, offensive lineman, interior guy, a guy that we recruited out of high school. And now we get a second chance at him. We get him. Malik Sela. 6'6", 245-pound, true defensive end, long, rangy. Been primarily a special teams guy. He'll get an opportunity here. Carson Lee from Eastern Michigan. Another guy with proven G5 statistics. Fluff Bothwell, no doubt about him. Right? I mean, a guy that was one of the best freshman running backs in the country. Played at South Alabama, you get him. Darren Reed Jr., another guy, highly recruited guy, 6'4", 285. He'll be 6'4", 300 before it's all said and done. Goes to Auburn. Hadn't done much on the field. And really what you're doing here with some of these guys that have multiple years of eligibility left to play is you're kind of replacing those guys where you had some recruiting misses. So you're trading out guys that are proven they can't play here for some guys that perhaps can. Rashawn Thomas led the nation in tackles for a defensive lineman in 2023. Gets his foot hurt, has to have surgery in the summer. Didn't play a lot this year. Took a redshirt year. Kind of the same with Will Woodson, a guy that was ultra productive in 2023 and was on the Senior Bowl watch list. Again, the ascending G5 guys, both of those guys. Dwight Lewis, a guy, of course, a lot of mystery about him. A lot of people love him. He's coming from the NAIA. He's going to have to use the spring to kind of get caught up on the speed of the game. Things are going to be much different here. The ball gets out quicker. It gets there quicker. And then there's 4 receivers. And so, again, you know, the execution and the implementation of this plan are certainly admirable. We go out and get some junior college guys, again, to kind of fill some gaps. But we were not expecting those guys to come in and be starters for us. Again, they're kind of pieces, you know. So that's the totality of the class as it stands right now. So 23 transfers, and then on top of that, 27 signees. So 50 new Bulldogs, and just about, I guess, all but maybe a handful of these guys will be here or are here now. Very important in that respect. And so we talk about flipping the roster over the course of the last 2 seasons. Been over what 90 new Bulldogs. Yeah, so again, very happy for Coach Bump to close out as well as he did. Now we got to go make things happen. Now we got to coach them up. We got guys that got some production. We got guys that have potential. Now it's up to our coaches to get these guys SEC ready to play. It's as simple as that. You know, the recruiting effort has been good. Now it's about coaching them. And the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is there wasn't a ton of proven Power 5 guys or Power 4 guys in the portal with a ton of production. A lot of guys with potential. There's a reason guys go in the portal. You get guys from lower levels trying to get to the next level, and you got guys at the highest level looking for other opportunities to play. It's an important aspect of this. All right, also, too, Stone Blanton, linebacker, shared on social media earlier that he plans to enter the draft. And that's an interesting decision. You know, we'll see how things go. I wish Stone the best. Great young man, and wish he'd have been here the whole time. Wish he'd come back for another year, but he sends out... After much prayer and thoughtful consideration, I am humbled and excited to declare for the 2025 NFL Draft. This journey has been filled with unforgettable moments, lessons, and blessings. First and foremost, I want to thank Mississippi State University and the University of South Carolina for their unwavering support, guidance, and the incredible opportunities they provided me on and off the field. To my coaches, teammates, and the fans, your belief in me has fueled my passion and determination. As I step into this next chapter, I carry with me the strength and wisdom of Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I am trusting in his plan and am ready to embrace this new adventure with faith and gratitude, end quote. So, again, we wish the best for Stone. You know, selfishly, we always think about, well, what's best for Mississippi State? Stone, getting married, if he hadn't already married, I can't recall, but, he's stepping into adulthood, and he's got to make the best decision for himself. And so we need as many Bulldogs in the league as we can get. You know, that gives us more to recruit with as we begin to talk to other players and say, hey, Stone Blanton was a transfer linebacker, didn't play a ton at South Carolina, came here, had a big year. So we're hopeful that he lands somewhere. Sure. I mean, you want to talk about what's best for State. It's when young men and ladies can come here and then realize their dreams in life, and that won't become a billboard for you for your recruiting efforts. So that's where that stands. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this men's basketball game, but we're going to talk about it. Kind of got what we expected in some respects. We were hoping with Johnny Broom out, that we would have an opportunity to make this a very competitive game. I give Auburn a ton of credit, and maybe perhaps they're better than we even thought. Maybe that's part of the deal. But, we knew Auburn was really good after they embarrassed Ohio State the way that they did. I wouldn't say they embarrassed us, but I'll tell you this, they are clearly the better team. And they ended up beating us by 22 last night. They were the better team. And I cautioned a little bit about this earlier in the week. I'm not going to give up on this team, and I encourage you not to do that. But, guys, this game was essentially over at the break, down 46-27. We battled back in the second half, but the edge comes off a little bit if you're Auburn, right? But, we need our stars to shine brightest on the biggest stage. Josh Hubbard, they were content to let him drive a little bit. And just 2 of 12 from the floor. Both of those were threes. He had 17 points to lead the Bulldogs. 11 of those came at the free throw line. 11 of 12 at the line. Pulled down 5 rebounds. No assist. Had the one turnover and then negated that with a steal. RJ Melendez, again, really kind of coming into his own. A double-double for him. 10 rebounds, 15 points. 5 of 12 from the field. 0 of 4 from beyond the arc. 5 of 6 from the line. Claudio Harris, again, kind of emerging as, a good secondary or a third scorer. 30 minutes of action, 11 points for him. Cam Matthews, 2 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 2 from beyond the arc, pulled down 5 rebounds and 4 points. And you know as well as I do, number 4 is going to be at the top of every scouting report. Michael Nwako had no success whatsoever with the interior of the Auburn defense there. 1 of 5 from the floor, just a pair of points. The one made basket there, and then only 3 rebounds. I mean, we get killed on the interior. 42 rebounds for us, just 30 for them. But you know what? They're making a lot of shots. And the blocks. It was a block party for them. 10 blocks in the game. Not going to get it done. Bulldogs shot 29% in the first half, 40% in the second half. So, you're shooting a little bit better. But I didn't think you're going back and watching a game last night. I kind of fast forward to do a lot of it, to be honest with you. We didn't share the basketball. And that's kind of indicative of the night we had. A lot of one-on-one, trying to create our own shots. But give Auburn a lot of credit, too. Their speed and their defensive pressure caused us some problems. The Tigers with 5 players in double figures on the night, 4 of 5 starters with double figures, and that's without Broom. So you can kind of imagine what they would be with him at full health. So that's the reality of where things stand. And so we've navigated through a difficult part of the schedule. But, the next couple of games, too, are going to be difficult as well. I don't think there's any question about that. I think we all kind of see it for what it is. We got to get right in a hurry. And I think getting home will help us. And that's going to be Saturday. We'll preview this game on Friday's show. Saturday, 5 p.m. tip. And so you have an opportunity to come and enjoy the glory of Starkville, do a little eating, some shopping, go to the ball game and still get home at a decent hour in time to get to bed and get up and go to church. It's going to be broadcast on ESPN2. And Ole Miss now 4-0 in the league. Did you expect that? They go to Alabama. They win in Tuscaloosa. I thought this Ole Miss team was a little bit overvalued. And that's not just my rivalry bias talking. That's truly how I felt. Well, they've answered the call here in conference play. So give them credit, and then we'll turn around on Tuesday and head to Knoxville to play Tennessee. And then things kind of ease up from there. Alabama, of course, has to come here, and Alabama's a good team. It's always been the best matchups for us. But, things get a little bit better once we navigate through this. And again, this Ole Miss team playing red hot, as well as I do, they will be fired up and coming here ready to play. So we're going to need you here, Many of you have bought tickets. If for some reason, if you cannot make it, we encourage you to get those tickets in the hands of other Bulldogs and give them the opportunity to come to the game. It is going to be the stripe out the hump game. And if you haven't kept up with that, you should. It's if I remember, I'll double check this, but like the odd number sections are one color and even or another. We made it as simple as we could. But we need to find a way to get some wins here. And there are a lot of people out there too. Sometimes we do it to ourselves, because hope springs eternal. We begin to think, hey, this is our magical year. I still think it can be. Now, I don't think anybody that was being objective said, hey, this Mississippi State team is a national championship contender. I think most of us felt at worst we're a tournament team that could win a game or two in the tournament, maybe get to the Sweet 16. And then, depending on the matchups, maybe you get one more. Are we an Elite 8 team? I don't know. I still think that we're potentially a Sweet 16 team, and I think also we have played two teams that are capable of getting to the Final Four, and certainly Auburn ranked the number one team in the country for a reason. So we haven't measured up against the elite in the conference. In addition to that, too, I think we maybe haven't met our expectations, but I think sometimes our expectations can be a little bit, delusional. Is it the right word? Because we want it so bad for Mississippi State. And this is a great roster. Again, Chris Jans is a great coach. We had a really good portal class, and so we felt like, hey, these are the games we expect to win. Then you lose to Kentucky, and before you could even lick your wounds, you got to go play the number one team in the country. You got to go play Kentucky, the greatest team in the history of the Southeastern Conference and one of the best programs in the history of college basketball. And your reward, win or lose, is to go play number one. Yeah, even without one of their better players. They're still an elite team. And so, again, we're not where we want to be or perhaps where some people thought we would be. That doesn't mean we can't get there. If you look historically what Chris Jans has done in the back half of the SEC schedule and the 2 years that he's been here, down the stretch, you thought, man, nobody wants to play us. I still believe that's in Chris Jans, and I believe it's in this roster. And so, no, I'm not giving up on the season. I'm not giving up on the team. And it's so easy when you're in the middle of it, right? It's like, oh, my gosh, it's never going to happen for us. Did you ever expect us to go to the Final Four in '96? Be honest about it. Beginning of the year, I think it was Arkansas we played that year. It was just, you looked at it like, man, we're not good enough. And then you get hot late, and you get Dante Jones in and kind of get him, of course, he's an elite player, a future first rounder. But you kind of understand my point there is that a lot can happen over the totality of a season. So please, 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 please don't stay home and don't look at this and say, you know what, hey, this is going to be another year like it's always been, and we're not going to live up to our potential. I just don't believe that's the case. I think we're going to. And, how would you feel Saturday night and certainly Sunday morning headed to church if you got a win over Ole Miss? That would change the complexion of a lot of things, and it's a rivalry game. And, and again, you've got a very proud and talented roster that did not play up to their potential last night. Kentucky, there were a few possessions here and there. The game last night was really never in question. And so proud people have a tendency to come right back and hit back after they have been kind of waylaid a little bit. And I think that's the position that we're in. And again, Ole Miss playing exceptionally well. We're going to have to play one of our better efforts of the year to win that ball game. And honestly, heading into this week, I began to think, I said, hey, we'll get those guys. They're answering the bell. And again, we'll talk more about the basketball Rebels on Friday, and look forward to doing that with you guys. And just kind of hope between now and then that we'll settle a little bit, because again, a lot of things happen over the course of a year. And you begin to kind of recalibrate your own emotional expectations of this team. I still believe this is an NCAA tournament team and a team that's capable of getting to the Sweet 16. Again, it's all going to depend on matchups. But I think, we'll learn as we go here. But I don't think anybody, when the schedule came out, you thought, hey, we probably got a chance to beat Kentucky at our place. And we did have a chance. We couldn't close the final 2 minutes. But I don't think most people expected us to go to Auburn and win the game. And so you see the Kentucky game as a toss-up and think that may be your best chance to get a marquee win. And then you got to go to Auburn, a place that's been very difficult to play, in recent years. And so let's not let all the goodwill that this team has earned to date go out the window just after back-to-back losses. This team's going to need you, and we certainly need Humphrey Coliseum packed on Saturday. All right, time for today's Top 10 list is always brought to you by closewithblair.com. They don't tell you when you're young that at some point you're going to need somebody that specializes in mortgages. You're going to need somebody to help you buy a house. It's not like going to Amazon, just clicking a button. It's a very complicated procedure. Give Blair Chandler's 24 years of experience and know-how working for you. We've had several Boneyard listeners over the years that have closed loans with Blair as their loan originator, as they should. We like to keep business in the family when we can. Hit him up at 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. Or visit closewithblair.com. Get more information there. It can be a very intimidating procedure. It can be. So stick with a winner like Blair Chandler and make life a lot easier on yourself, because he'll take care of a lot of things on the front end, because before we even submit that loan to underwriting, we want to make sure that we have all the guidelines met, we've got all the documentation. Because the last thing you need is you send everything in, and then you get an LO going back to, hey, I need this, I need that, I need this. You work with Blair, and he can help hold your hand through what can be a very, very intimidating ordeal. So whether you're looking for your first house, your next house, or your retirement home, look to Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. Okay. You know, when you listen to a song on Apple Music, I'm sure it's this way on Spotify too. I'm not a Spotify person. But you'll just kind of put a song on, and then sometimes Apple Music or iTunes will play like a related song. Like they'll be, hey, if you like this, then you may like this. And so I just kind of let it roll. As I was coming back from Enterprise, you know, I'm a hands-free driver. When it comes to my phone, I just kind of plug in and use CarPlay, and, you know, better sound quality too than Bluetooth, but also too, as texts come in, things like that, I can kind of communicate with people and do a lot of talking on the phone too. But I just wanted to kind of settle in, you know, because cell service between Meridian and Macon at times can be a real adventure. So I just kind of let it roll. I didn't want to get in the middle of a conversation and have to keep calling back only to lose service. And all of a sudden, I'm listening to some 80s metal. And next thing I know, you know, Pretty Boy Floyd comes on, you know, and then the Rocks Gang comes on, and then Jet Boy comes on. Some of these obscure bands that maybe you're not familiar with, those of us that are defenders of the faith, we remember all too well. Enough's enough, bands like that. So I just kind of let the 80s hard rock goodness bathe upon me. And then all of a sudden, it played this song. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not familiar with this band. The production quality of this music is outstanding. So clearly this was a band that somebody put some money into. Why have I not heard of them? Wait a minute, that voice sounds familiar. And lo and behold, it was a supergroup called the End Machine. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the End Machine, as I was, they're not from the 80s. They just happen to have some guys in the band. It's a super group with guys from the 80s with a little more of a modern take on 80s rock. And so I went back and listened to the song again. And then I put the full album on. I listened to it. I ended up calling and texting a few friends. I was like, dude, this came out in 2019. This is like 6 years ago. How did I miss this? And it appears a lot of people did. And so we're going to give them their justice today, because the End Machine, for those of you that don't know, is comprised of George Lynch, Jeff Pilson, and Mick Brown of Dokken, and then Robert Mason, who was the original voice of Cry of Love, and then he was the second voice in Lynch Mob, and now he's the voice of Warrant. This guy can really sing. Incredible stuff. I didn't like that self-titled Lynch Mob album nearly as much as Wicked Sensation. But this is a very intriguing project. I don't know where it stands today, if they're going to do any more dates or any more material, but this album is great. If you like this good, straight-ahead rock and roll, it's great. Because sometimes, to be honest with you, with modern rock, I get a little bit tired of the over-processed sound. There's almost so much of that. Times it's noise, right? Sometimes I just want to hear some guys plug in and play, and hear some people that can really sing. And that's what I got with this End Machine album. And so there's 11 tracks on the album. I'm going to give you my 10 favorite. The one that didn't make it for me was a song called Line of Division. It's still good. I didn't like it nearly as much as the rest. And so this will be kind of a quick list here. But I'll tell you, if you like Dokken and you love George Lynch, and if you love guitars, how could you not love George Lynch? Probably the most humble superstar that I've ever met. Met him at Rocklahoma. Thanks, Mark. Walking along there, and there's this George Lynch in a T-shirt and a pair of jeans and some flip-flops, and he's like, hey, man, do you know where catering is? Well, as a matter of fact, George, I do. I'll walk with you if we can talk for a second. Spent some time talking to George, took a picture together, had a chance to tell him how much I've loved his music all these years. One of the few times in my life I got a little starstruck, to be honest with you. But George Lynch does not play. There's some guitar solos on this, but it's not like the 80s. Again, there's some elements of the 80s in these tracks, but it's a bit more modern. But it's not a complete sellout to the era. So here we go. Number 10, a track called Bulletproof. I really dig this one. It's number 10 for a reason, though. There's some other ones that are much, much better. Number 9, a great track called Hard Road. I dig this one, man. Lyrically, it is an absolute beautiful song in that respect. Because there's some of us, and we talk about being alone. Sometimes we choose to be alone. We got to go navigate life, and we take the more difficult path. That's kind of what this one's about. Number 8, Ride It. This is a high-energy track. If you need to add a little hair on your chest, or perhaps a little more bass to your your workout playlist, this may be the way to go. Number 7, one of the first songs I listened to, a track called Hold Me Down. I like this one a lot. More of an aggressive track. And again, this is just good straight-ahead rock and roll. This is not heavy metal or thrash type stuff. And when you say that, people get their feelings hurt. I kind of separate Anthrax, Metallica, and all of them. There's a lot of people that just play fast to cover the fact they can't play. Not the case with these guys. Number 6, this was the song that I heard. I was so impressed with the big chorus. Because, those of us from the 80s, we love the big chorus. We like that Def Leppard pronounced chorus, that harmonized chorus. It's a song called Life is Love is Music. And I heard it, I went back and listened to it again. I was like, dude, this is great. This is great. I love music. I love life. It's a celebration of my favorite things outside of sports. All right, number 5, love this one, another aggressive one, kind of in your face, track called No Game. And it's like, hey, people out there playing around, messing with us, but we're not playing a game. It's very serious touch. Sometimes I take myself too seriously. But every day that I wake up, every day of my life, I wake up and say, okay, what do I need to do to win today? What do I need to do to win today? And so I'm not really playing any games. I'm always just trying to win. Because in order to play, you got to lose sometimes. But every single day, if that means I got to get up and write 15 articles myself, that's what I got to do. What do I need to do to win today? Personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually, everything. What does Steve need to do? I'm not just having an accidental existence anymore. I got to have purpose in my life. Number 4, absolutely love this one. Every good 80s hair metal band and heavy metal album had to have a power ballad. This kind of starts out like one, but it picks up a little bit. The tempo picks up. I really, really like it. I think the vocal on this may be the best on the album. It's a track called Sleeping Voices. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of those ones that, if you're looking for something a little bit different, but also too familiar, this is the way to go. Number 3, absolutely love it, man. It's got an interesting intro. It's not like anything else George Lynch has really ever done. But it kind of goes back to this whole, winning thing. It's alive today. It's like, I don't know who wrote it, and a lot of people have sang it over the years and quoted it, but, it's like, I don't want people, to look back and say that he lived. I want them to know that I was alive, right? That I did things. I didn't just sit here and go through life working a job I hated and paying the mortgage and raising kids and calling it a day. And for some people, perhaps that's enough. It's just not for me. I'm just wired a little bit differently. It's not to say that we're better or worse than each other, that we need people out there that are just kind of work a day. Our communities are built on people like that. I mean, everybody can't go out there and be the sheriff. We've got to have some deputies, right? That's how life works. But this is one of those inspirational songs that really kind of fires me up. Alive Today. Number 2, this is the lead track on the album. Got an interesting intro. But man, I thought, man, what a great initial statement for this album. It's a track called Leap of Faith. It is so incredibly good. I haven't done the research on this to kind of see, the order of singles released, and maybe we'll do that now. But if I was going to introduce you to these guys, and put an album together, this is probably the one I would have picked to lead off the album, because I think it really shows you, number one, that, hey, this is a George Lynch project. Super, super cool. Super, super cool. Let's look here. So, yeah, they had the one album. It's so crazy, too, to think about all the things that Jeff Pilson's done in his career. He's been with Foreigner and Dokken and Dio and Macaulay Schenker Group. He's done a little bit of everything. He's still with Foreigner. But let me look here. So, yeah, there was a couple other albums. There was Phase 2 and Quantum Phase, and I'll get into those. But the debut album, The End Machine, the self-titled one, came out in 19. And it is very much a classic rock sound. Alive Today was the first single, and then our number 1 track was number 2, and Leap of Faith was actually number 3. So, yeah, now I've got some more great music to listen to on the next road trip. It's true. Yeah, Robert Mason's no longer the vocalist, So Girish Pradhan is. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. But the debut album, absolutely fantastic. And number 1 for me, man, this is one of those tracks. Again, if you don't listen to any of the rest of them, listen to this. It's called Burn the Truth. And it's basically about rising with the sun, right? And it's kind of like, not a prayer to the sun, but kind of a call to the sun to kind of light my way and to burn the truth in my eyes, to kind of keep me free of all of the hubris and filters and things like that in life, to give me an authentic life. Lyrical content, amazing. The vocal, amazing. My wife is very anti-80s, and she was kind of anti-80s even in the 80s, to tell you the truth. Like when I was listening to Motley and Winger and Rat, she would kind of tolerate that stuff. I didn't know her then. But she was into Boston and Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, she was too cool for 80s. And see, it's a wonder that it ever worked. But I sent her this track. I didn't tell her anything about it. I just sent her the track. And she goes, hey, that's really good. Who is that? And so I got a chance to explain. I sent it to Ani. I sent it to Michael Richardson. I sent it to a handful of other friends. I said, hey, these guys, but under different names. Check it out. Tell me what you think. I really, really enjoy this album. And there are a lot of albums that have come out in recent years where I like 1 or 2 tracks. This is one of those ones that it's really kind of a no-skip album for me, even though I just learned of it about 24 hours ago. Because after I listened to it once, it's about 56 minutes in running time, I put it back on again and listened to it again because I was so impressed with it. And I think you got to be true to yourself and true to what you know. But I don't think that great artists are limited to an era. And I think George Lynch has shown that he has been an innovator. But this was kind of a return to form for him. And I think that you're going to really enjoy this. And so Jeff Murrah, Sam Denton, all my friends out there that love 80s, if you don't know The End Machine, you're going to thank me later. And we got some other fans that listen to the show, and they hit me up and say, Steve, I like that. I can't recommend this one highly enough because I love it when I find something that maybe I'm unfamiliar with. It's like, finding all of a sudden, like you go to a secondhand store and there's like a record in there and it's like, hey, I'm going to pick this up and give it a shot. And you're like, oh my gosh, where's this been my whole life? I don't know it's that dramatic, but this is one of those ones where I feel like, man, how in the world did I miss this? And why wasn't this promoted much bigger? I kind of keep up with George and things that are going on, but I missed it, Of course, COVID came along in 2020 and kind of distracted us from everything else in the world that was going on. But super cool, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And then if there's anything of note on these next 2 albums, I'll let you know. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy Samanti who confesses that he is behind a little bit on getting your list out, but he will get caught up this weekend. I don't know what Roy does with his days. I mean, honestly, I don't. Ready for Roy to retire and be 100% committed to the Boneyard. It's true. It's true. I need Roy to get there. He keeps saying he's going to retire in Starkville so we can make it work. But hit Roy up on Twitter or X at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC 67, and you can find our great list on Spotify with that same handle. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. Man, I love Campus Bookmart. I have for a long time because they have the things that I want. As a Mississippi State guy, I want to get Mississippi State apparel. I want to get Mississippi State gifts. You can find all those things at Campus Bookmart. For Bulldogs, from Bulldogs. The people there ride the wave of emotion of Mississippi State's sporting events just like you do. They know what True Maroon looks like, too. You go out there and you get something off eBay or some third party out there. Next thing you know, you get your kids walking around in a crimson Mississippi State shirt. Nobody wants that. Life's tough enough as it is. So whether you're looking for something to outfit yourself in, perhaps a good gift idea, I always mention those diploma frames. I think is a timeless gift. You could be the favored grandparent, aunt, or uncle by taking care of that. And every time they look up their diploma with pride, they'll remember that you were the one that brought that frame for them. So that's super cool. If you can't visit their smiling faces next time you're in town, visit them on the World Wide Web and support a Starkville institution, Campus Bookmart, by visiting campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays, and that is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gives you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. All right, let's talk women's basketball here. Big game coming up, as you guys are well aware. And, we got off. We knew it was going to be a tough start. We bounced back as we hoped that we would. And things have been going much better here as of late. And would be a huge win for the Bulldogs if we can find a way to win in Knoxville. And that's been very difficult for us to do, over the years. That ball game tomorrow night at 6 p.m. If you're in the greater Knoxville area, we encourage you to turn out and attend. Volunteers rank 15th in the country right now. We haven't had a lot of wins over Tennessee in our history. In women's basketball, we are 8-40 all time, and we have won 3 games in Knoxville. Yeah, not the best, sure. Kind of part of the deal. But our last one in Knoxville, though, came in the 19 and 20 season. We went up there and won by 17. So it hadn't been too terribly long ago that we've had their number. Of course, they've made some changes, as have we, since that time. But Lady Vols, it is a name that is synonymous with excellence in women's basketball. They recruit and play at a very high level. It's just kind of the reality of life. They have been a blue blood for a long time. Hadn't been quite as dominant as they once were. It used to always be the regular season was an exhibition, and then UConn and Tennessee would play for it all. But, kind of looking at things earlier in the year, just huge scores for them. Averaging, 90 plus. They surpassed the 100-point mark multiple times in the non-conference. They open up with Carson Newman, and they win that game 135-49. They blast Samford 101-53, 90-50 winners over UT Martin. They get middle by just 14, but 89-75. So an off-night scoring turns out to 89 points. They blast Liberty in a wild one, 109-93. They double up Western Carolina 102-50. And then they narrowly beat Florida State. They get into some Power 4 competition, and, of course, the margin of victory comes down a great deal, but they continue to win. 79-77 winners over the Lady Seminoles. And then in Brooklyn, they play, at the time, ranked 17th Iowa Hawkeyes and beat them 78-68. Then they get back into, some less than competitive games. They blow out Northern Carolina Central by 80. 139-59. They get Memphis 90-75. They get Richmond in West Palm Beach in the West Palm Beach Classic. That was one of those traveling tournaments They win 92-67 and then beat Tulsa 102-61. They get Winthrop 114-50, and then Texas A&M in the conference play again. You'd say, well, Steve, the competition's better, and it's true, but they're still scoring 80, 90 points a game. 91-78 winners in College Station, and then they lose at home to Oklahoma by 87-86, the team that Mississippi State's recently defeated. And then they host LSU. You know what LSU brings to the table. Lose by just a pair. And then they blast Arkansas, who has not been good this year, by 30. So it has been an eventful year, but again, you look at these numbers, the scoring numbers are absolutely gaudy. We're going to have to bring our best defensive effort in this ball game to make this thing competitive. Already through 16 games, they're 14-2 and 2-2 in the league. But while defense has been an issue, offense certainly hadn't been. Averaging 96.4 points a game. You almost didn't need to do the math, right? Almost 1,550 points already. That's crazy. That is nuts, man. Shooting 45% from the floor, 33% from beyond the arc. Those are numbers that any men's team would take right now. Even NBA teams would love to have those type of percentages. But they're also allowing right at 45% from the floor from their opponents. Now, opponents are hitting 26% from beyond the arc, and some of that's a skill level of the competitor. Rebounding has been a strong point. Pulling down almost 8 more boards per game, averaging 43, giving up 35. And this is where we need Ocott to be big for us. Team basketball, 285 assists on the year to 205, so that's a +5 per game for the Lady Vols. They have done a really good job kind of forcing turnovers too. They've turned it over 235 times. They forced 423. And that's just a measure of athleticism there. As I've said many times, there's not a greater difference between the haves and the have-nots in college sports than there is in women's basketball. It's just the talent level, that people go to the top schools. I mean, everybody wants to play, but there's not as much value in the lower level of women's basketball. Just not. Averaging 36 points a game off turnovers alone. Yeah, that'll help you get to 100. 230 steals. They've only given it up 95 times. Blocks maybe hadn't been the big thing. 50 blocks for them, 46 for their opponents. But, they're usually playing in front of big crowds, and we do expect a huge crowd in Knoxville tomorrow night. Talasia Cooper leads the show with 18.3 points a game. She's also the team leader in blocks with a dozen blocks out of those 50 we discussed. 57 steals for her. She does have a propensity to turn the basketball over. 57 turnovers to just 53 assists. Also a bit of foul trouble, 44. That's just, it's just a measure of being aggressive. Jewel Spear, 13.4 points per game. Leads the team with 105 three-point shots sent skyward. 39% has made 41 of those shots. Ruby Whitehorn, 13 points a game for her. They have 5 players that are regular starters that are averaging double figures in scoring. Samara Spencer with 11.3, Z Spearman 11.2. And so, this is a team that's got some depth. You've got multiple players there just kind of really close, just a couple baskets away from being double-digit scorers. But, they play a lot of people. They do. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, they basically play 10 to 11 players per game. Most of those players averaging over double-digit minutes. But the leader, is 24.4 Spear, playing 24 minutes a game. So you can see there's some depth. There is a rotation, and so it's going to really challenge our depth as we get into this. In the conference play, just kind of looking at numbers here too, that even with more of a settled rotation, it's still basically the same number of players that are playing more extensively. Now, of course, you see Spear and Cooper's numbers go up a little bit, averaging a few more minutes per game. But, it's a different Tennessee team that we've seen, especially on the offensive end. They will absolutely get out and score in bunches. A lot of separation in these games, as you've seen. And so we're going to need Sam and the crew to bring their best effort. And we're going to get their full attention too. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I mean, we're not going to sneak up on them. they're going to look at this and say, you know what, hey, this is kind of part of the deal. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think I've said it 3 times now. We're going to have to come out and play well. And that's not a hot take. That's not a big leap of faith there by any stretch of imagination. But this would be a huge win for us. I'm not expecting it because I don't know that we can win a shootout with them. I think that's probably a fair assessment. We're going to have to slow the ball down, force them to play in the half court, and not really get out and score in transition. But looking at the SEC standings here, LSU, South Carolina, Kentucky, all 4-0. All 4-0 in the league. Alabama, Texas are 3-1. Tennessee, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Florida, all there 2-2. Vandy 1-3. Georgia 1-3. A&M 1-3. Arkansas 1-3. And Missouri and Auburn both now 0-4. We only have one team in the league with an overall losing record, and that's Arkansas, 8-11. There will be some others before this thing is done. A lot of them just kind of hovering around 500 now that we're in SEC play. The talent differential not in their favor. So, we'll see some interesting things here in the next, several weeks. But it's already January the 15th. You start thinking about March Madness. I mean, goodness, we're 6 weeks away from the month of March. And the next thing you know, you're into postseason play and things of that nature. It's just, it's so incredibly interesting to see how time flies when you're having fun and following sports teams. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. It is a wonderful place to stay. Of this I can personally attest. It is the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. So incredible to have everybody under one roof. Rather than go out and get 5 or 6 hotel rooms and everybody spread out all over the Golden Triangle, get everybody together. You can eat together. You can dine together. You can relax together. It's such a great place to be. We had such a great time there. Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Their Facebook page will pop up. You can look through the pictures of all the amenities available to you and your guest. In addition to that, too, you're going to see some booking options pop up. Airbnb, VRBO, you can go that route if you want to. But if you want to save some money, book through the Evolve website using promo code BSR10. That's BSR and the number 10 to get 10% off your stay. That's only available to Boneyard listeners, too. Yeah, how cool is that? Listen to the show, you get a discounted rate at the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. Doesn't matter if it's a family group, a friend group, a work group, or whatever. Full-service kitchen, the wet bar, that great back porch area, the fire pit area. We used that extensively when we were there. We needed to, too, but there's just something more meaningful about having conversations around the fire. It just is. So check it out today, but you'll be glad you did. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the premier place to stay in the Golden Triangle. All right, this may have gone unnoticed by some. The astute posters over at genespage.com, they picked it out pretty quick. One last thing to complain about as the Mississippi State 2025 baseball roster has now been released. Of course, we updated you on some of the moves some time ago. But let's kind of go through it here pretty quick, if we can. Sometimes navigating this stuff isn't as easy as it should be. Sawyer Reeves, award number 2, of course, he was one of the first portal pieces. Comes to us from the Citadel, of course, coaching change out there. Sawyer was highly recommended to Coach Lamonis by the staff at the Citadel. Of course, Lem, a Citadel alum. Sawyer's also a married guy, excited guy, had a good fall with us. We expect some good things from him. He may be your everyday second baseman. We'll see. Ace Reese from Canton, Texas. I love him. I think there's some star quality with him. I think there's a good chance he's your everyday third baseman. Got to pick it up a little bit defensively. It's kind of been a tenet of us here as of late, the last few years. We've been one of the better teams in the country defensively. Last year, I think heading to the regional, we were number 1 in defensive fielding percentage. So we're not going to compromise that. But we need Ace to kind of have a good preseason. But, his bat will be somewhere in the order. Mekhi Grant, of course, wears number 4. Missed all last year with Tommy John. We'll be careful with him. We were in the fall, but he should be full go. But we're not going to stretch him out too much in the early going of the season. Aaron Downs still around too. I'm an Aaron Downs fan. I said this when he was a freshman. The ball just sounds different coming off his bat. He really barrels things up. Utility guy, mainly an outfielder, will compete, out there for a couple of spots. Last year Bryce Chance had some struggles. Aaron went in. Aaron carried, a couple of weeks there. Bryce goes back in the order. But it's nice to have a guy like Aaron. Landis Davila is a freshman from Farragut, Tennessee. Did some big things in the fall. 6'3", 200-pound freshman off one of the greatest high school teams that's ever been. Really excited about what he can bring to the table. I expect him to be a starter in year 2. Reed Stallman, of course, the transfer, comes in. We brought him in expecting him to replace Hunter Hines at first base. And, of course, Hunter Hines didn't get drafted, so he's back. So, again, 6'3", 220-pound guy. He can play a little bit of outfield, too. We'll see how things progress with him. Charlie Foster, freshman left-hander out of Snellville, Georgia. Former Georgia commitment. State picks him up the week of the MLB Combine. He was absolutely outstanding in fall baseball. And, of course, D1Baseball.com now has a feature on Charlie, a future SEC guy. Will throw some good innings for us now. I don't know if he's your Tuesday night guy to start, but it'd be nice to kind of bring him along and have him ready. But this is a guy that can change speeds on you. Works a lot of sink, natural sink to his fastball. Pico Con, I'm a big fan of Pico's. People forget, we found out that he wasn't going to play like the beginning of the 2023 season. He has Tommy John surgery, and it wasn't like a full tear or anything. It was just kind of one of those things, just kind of the toll and grind that pitching can kind of take on you. 6'4", 200 pounds. Really picked it up down the stretch last year. Came out, threw some at Samford and threw some at Memphis and had some walks early in the year, but that got better. His final appearance, 8 Ks, 1 walk against Virginia. Through 7 innings, kind of saw what he could be. I expect him to be a weekend starter. Not sure where he factors in, if it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but we do expect him. Dylan Kopp, you may recall, there were a lot of people that were worried that he might not even come to school, and then we had to worry about him going in the portal. But it all works out the way that it should. And this is a guy, too, that it was really kind of starting to come into his own at the plate. He's always been an elite defender. And then, of course, he's, beating it down the line, trying to beat out an infield hit, and then has a knee injury that lingers. And we put him back in there, and he just wasn't ready to go. They end up having surgery, but he's good to go now. Didn't play with him in the fall much at all. Let him swing some, not run things out, but he'll be full go in practice now. Duke Stone, a right-handed pitcher, another former Georgia commitment, 6'5", 225. Big physical country guy from Jeff Davis High School in Uvalde, Georgia. He is a guy that there's some people that believe he has some pro potential. Evan Sierra, of course. Evan's a guy that's been kind of a spot reliever for us, a spot starter at times. He pitched against Paul Skeens in 2023 down in Baton Rouge, you may recall. There's a place for him on this team, and there's been some times he's been really good, and other times he struggled to throw strikes. But when he has thrown strikes, he has been good. Nate Chester's a guy you kind of like, you just can't run him off, and kind of like, an old barn cat out there. You put some food, he kind of keeps coming around. He transferred in, from John Logan Community College, a former Missouri Tiger, and a guy that's another utility guy that can basically play, a couple spots in your infield as you need it if guys get banged up or whatever. But glad that he's back, and he kind of let everybody know in his exit meeting, Coach, I'm coming back, and we're glad to have him. Cato Leary is a freshman that went to the MLB Combine. We didn't see a whole lot from him in the fall, but he's also from that Farragut High School team out of Knoxville. Expecting big things from him. 6'4", 190. Probably got to get a little bit stronger, but he will. Luke Dotson, of course, two-way player for State last year, primarily as a pitcher out of Marietta, Georgia. You know about him. He's a left-hander, and we're going to have a lot of left-handers in this order. And we're going to have a lot of left-handers on the bump. Braden Booth, one of the most impressive freshmen this fall, will be a factor probably at second later in his career. It's kind of a logjam in the middle infield right now. I think Braden Booth will play some late in ball games in the non-conference. But hit the baseball pretty well, too, for a freshman guy. I think he has a very bright future. Stone Simmons had to kind of dispel some rumors about him recently. Words were out there, oh, maybe he's not going to be available again. You recall Stone, way back in 2022, had the injury in a game that he was absolutely about to put away against Tulane. We lose Landon Sims on Friday, and then Stone on Sunday. And Lem sat there and kind of got beat up for it a little bit. And then he goes through Tommy John. He comes back last year. And then every time he pitched, he'd have some inflammation. They had to go back and replot the nerve. And it wasn't a major surgery, but the recovery time took a long time. Stone elects to come back. He's a factor for you, too. Could be a back-end guy, could be a starting guy, could be whatever. Stone's a guy that wants to be a Bulldog, loves being here. Recently engaged. Congratulations to he and his family. Noah Sullivan, of course, transferring from USC Upstate, can pitch a little bit, and I think he actually pitched better in the fall than we anticipated. You know, he's probably a reliever on Tuesday, maybe your midweek closer. You know, we'll see how things go with him, but you're probably going to be your right-handed DH. He's a product of Dr. Phillips High School down in Orlando. Robert Fortenberry from Frisco, Texas, but his dad is from Marion County. His dad was a West Marion high school guy. Robert is a left-hander that throws a variety of changeups. So you like him, you know, kind of coming in, maybe the number 2 guy out of there. Maybe you start a right-hander, and he can get you 5 innings, and you bring in Fortenberry to get you through the lineup and kind of chew up those lefties. You know, that's what you want. You know, I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think he's going to be a spot reliever for us. And you can never have enough left-handed pitching. Ross Highfield is a guy I've been huge on, you know, since he flipped from Southern Miss to us a couple of years ago. Of course, you know, Ross, 9 dingers and 28 ribbies as a freshman, one of the best young catchers in the country. Hit about 230. So, you know, it took him a while to kind of spot up the breaking ball. Hit 3 home runs in a game against Lipscomb. Maybe you've forgotten. But, you know, Ross is a guy that got injured last fall, ended up having to have Tommy John surgery. They were really careful with him. We didn't do much with him at all in the fall, but he's been swinging the bat. We expect him to be full go. Will he start behind the plate? That kind of remains to be seen. I think ideally you'd love for him to be able to get a couple starts a week behind the plate. Jackson Owen is another guy that, to be honest with you, I'm surprised Jackson is still here. And then you get into fall baseball. If you attended those fall baseball scrimmages, Jackson Owen was one of the best hitters that we had. I mean, it seemed like every time you turn around, it's another home run. And one of the things that I've thought about, you know, what could a role for him be? I mean, he's not the most physical guy. He's not really imposing, but he's 5'10", 200 pounds. You know, I don't know if you don't start him on Tuesday nights and just let him be your Tuesday night catcher. You know, we'll see. You know, you got Joe Powell. You know, we kind of split things up last year between Johnny Long and Joe Powell. You know, I don't know if Jackson doesn't have a role because of that bat. Bradley Lofton's still with us too, and Bradley got to turn down big money to come to State, and you know, just things hadn't come together for him yet. If it does this year, you know, he's a 6'3", 200-pound, overly competitive left-handed pitcher. I mean, this is a guy that absolutely hates losing. If you can kind of get him turned around and move him in the right direction, you know, he had some physical injuries, and you know, it's just been one of those things, man. It just hasn't come together for him. But the talent is there. And I think he's a bit of an X factor for this team. Chase Hungate, right-handed pitcher, beat us at Virginia. From Abingdon, Virginia. Went to UVA, transferred, and this is a guy, too, on the back end. You know, we start talking about how many games last year did we lose because we didn't have enough on the back end to close out games. Hungate is one of those very frustrating guys because he's a multi-arm slot guy. He can change speeds on you. And when he changes the arm slot, it changes the shape of the pitch. And so you go up to the first time, you know, he may get you overhand. The next thing you know, it's a sidearm deal, and he comes back. I mean, it's just so many things with him. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife in that. And, of course, Gavin Black. And we kind of wondered, when we signed him, some people were kind of down on the signing. And then late in the year, Gavin Black proved to be one of State's best relievers. And you know, people wondered, hey, why did we pull him against Virginia? You know. And a lot of it's just we wanted to set up a lefty-lefty matchup. Maybe we overthought it a little bit. But Gavin Black is another guy on the back end. You begin to think about having, you know, you didn't have a bona fide closer outside of maybe TD last year, and you had to kind of overuse him. And you start thinking about this. You had Tyson Harden last year, but you just didn't have that guy to go out there and just throw gas. I think Gavin Black could be that guy. And I think you could see him and Hungate, kind of tag team this. Ryan McPherson, a guy that's coming off Tommy John out of a North Broward prep. It's not what you'd expect from him. Nate Williams is another guy that listed on the roster. Was the top closer in junior college, 2 years ago out of Florence Darlington. Jacob Pruitt, of course, transfers in from Indiana State, and this is a guy too. Is he a weekend guy? Is he a starter? Is he a long reliever? Is he a back-end guy? I think he's one of those guys too that kind of whatever you need him to do. And basically his mentality is, Coach, I just want the ball when the game matters most. If that's starting, if that's relieving and turn it over to the bullpen, or if that's closing, I just want the ball when it matters. Carson Ligon, a bit of an X factor for State. Remember, he was a weekend starter at Miami. We expected him to come in and take one of those spots last year. Wasn't 100% healthy. Walks were an issue early on. He kind of got some things going late. I did some numbers on this earlier. I think in his last 6 appearances, he allowed 3 runs on 4 hits. I think that's right. And I think 4 of those 6 games, he didn't allow anything. Michael O'Brien, another guy that really benefited from the summer and the fall. I think Mike could be your everyday center fielder. I think him and Bryce Chance are both – I think there's a lot of names out there. I think O'Brien is your best defensive center fielder. Can really run, rangy guy, times the ball up well, can track the baseball, and you have to have that. And we worried a little bit last year about Connor Hyzak. That's the thing you think about. This time last year – telling everybody Connor Hyzak was going to play in center and people didn't think he could handle it. Now you're wondering how we're going to live life without him. That's just kind of how life works. But Mike is a guy offensively that has kind of turned the corner, too. I think you're going to be impressed with what you see from Mike, a guy that can really run the bases, too. Reeves Reynolds, out of Jackson Prep, missed last year due to injury. This is another guy that's done some big things, and he looks so much better after a year in a college weight room. Eager to see what he brings to the table. Garrick Fry, of course, transfers in from North Alabama. Guy that played against us, he was their leading hitter. In fall, it was kind of up and down. It really was. He had some good days, had some days that he struggled a little bit. Where does he factor in? Is he going to be competing at third with Ace, or is he in the logjam at second? Ben Davis is a guy that nobody really talks about, and I think he's worthy of your attention. He is a pitcher and a catcher out of Northeast Mississippi Community College. Or maybe he went to Itawamba. I think maybe he went to Itawamba. He's from Boonville, though. But he is a guy that can help you in a variety of ways. And, yeah, he went to Itawamba. So shout out to the Indians there. But he is a dude that I think can maybe nail down some things for you in the midweek and then spot relief for you on the weekends. Nolan Stevens, of course, a guy that can do a little bit of everything, can play some first, can play some outfield. I think he's probably your opening day right fielder. Another power bat from the left-handed side. A lot of potential with him. How much he pitches this year kind of remains to be seen. If we need him, we can use him. And he's a guy, too, that we kind of put in some impossible situations last year. I think about that Friday night game at Florida. He gets the ground ball. It's kind of a cue shot over to Logan Kohler. But that's the game. We make that play, we win the game, win the series. But instead, Nolan does his job, and we're not able to make plays behind him. And there were a couple times like that. I remember going to College Station, Texas. We're just kind of mowing them down. We bring in Nolan, and things just kind of blow up on us late. Bryce Chance, another guy that's been around forever and a day, it seems. And Bryce, a guy that loves Mississippi State. I thought Bryce took a big jump last year. Of course, he was one of the most difficult players in the country in all of college baseball to strike out. Will be a factor left and center. Ethan Pulliam, of course, Ethan's a guy that's punted and played some baseball. And it's going to be interesting with so many people competing for that second base spot. Where does Ethan fit? Jack Gleason, right-handed pitcher from Briarcrest Christian out of Germantown, was an elite high school pitcher. Not high enough to really be on the draft boards, but this is a guy that's done it really well and a guy that we're expecting some big things from. Steven Spalletta, remember he was a late signee a couple years ago. Came in and dominated the fall, but didn't do much in the season. Was kind of a midweek catcher at times. And some of those midweek games, too, you recall, we tried to give some guys some days off and got ourselves in a bit of a pickle because we had so many guys that haven't acclimated to college baseball pitching yet. And so we struggled to score runs in those midweek games. Spalletta was kind of part of that. You kind of put him in a situation and hope that he can go out there and help win a ball game for you, as a true freshman, surrounded by a lot of other younger guys. Hunter Hines, of course, he's back. Hunter Hines will have to have a monster year, but the SEC career home run record is something that is in reach. That's something to watch. Dane Burns, one of the guys that I really like, and I love the way that State handled this. I give Lamonis and them a lot of credit because, he signed with us and then didn't enroll last year, which would have made him a recruitable athlete. And we just didn't make a big deal about it. And Dane wanted to be here at Mississippi State, so Dane wasn't out there on social media working back channels trying to find somewhere else to go. He needed to recover from Tommy John himself. He comes back late last year, threw a little bit into Cape, really his first action in a couple of years. But this is a guy that turned down big money to come to State. His dad was a professional hockey player, so his dad sees a bigger picture. J.T. Schnur, right-handed pitcher from Pascagoula out of Resurrection High School, also by way of Jones County Junior College. Interested to see kind of what he can bring to the table. But again, one of the things that I've brought up to Lim a couple times is, Coach, you got enough arms now. You shouldn't have to double dip and throw your premium relief arms on Tuesdays to get wins. And I think JT can be a part of that. It was a guy that did some big things. But Kevin Manell, of course, a guy that also went to the MLB Combine. Again, 6'4", 210 pounds. He wants to be at a starting role, but says he'll do whatever he needs to. One of the most impressive guys in the fall, and a guy maybe you didn't know quite as well, Gallon Sanders. By way of Jones County, Bulldog family, Madison Central High School grad, and he was a guy that I wondered would even be here when the season started because we have so many bodies at second. And I wondered, kind of where he would fit in. But there were some days you look up and he's got like 2 or 3 hits. He's just a guy that gets on base. And you need some guys like that in the order. Wes Pritchard, the left-hander from Lamar School, he'll be an awfully interesting pick too. 6'3", 165 pounds. Got to get bigger. Probably don't see much from him this year. But a lot to work with moving forward. Now, Lucas Buckner, another one of those guys who was kind of the surprise of the fall. I think he might be right now, if we would call it, I think he's your third-team shortstop. Because you know what you have in Sawyer Reed, you know what you have in Dylan Cup. No question about it. But for a high school kid, he came in and acclimated to college baseball very, very quickly. And I think some of that comes from being a coach's kid. But, he hit the ball at him 100 miles an hour. He's kind of a little David Mershon in him. And that's not to bestow too much praise on his shoulders, but very impressive player for a younger guy. And then there's Joe Powell, your number 2 catcher much of the year last year, but caught some big games for us. And, he was a guy, too, that kind of found some offense. And you got to remember, he was away from baseball for, a year and a half. And so it took you a while to kind of get going. So I'm hopeful that he, can kind of bring something to this lineup. But we've got a lot of production that we've got to make up. As you guys know, the weekend rotation is gone. And we had a school record number of pitchers drafted last year. And I think a lot of that, number one, as I've said on this show more than once, the 2 coaches I think you probably can trust the most at Mississippi State is Justin Parker and Chris Jans. I know that Park will have a good game plan for everybody as we begin to kind of navigate through this. And it may take some time to settle the weekend rotation. I'm eager to get out there and see these scrimmages and kind of see, what the rotation looks like. And it's so crazy. You think back last year, Colby Holcomb was dominant through the fall, dominant through spring training, and then the last start before the season began, he just kind of blew up. And it took him a while to get his confidence back. And as you guys know, he's a guy that's a big-bodied, pro-bodied type guy. Wish him the best as he kind of moves forward. But you don't really know until we get all the scrimmages in the books how things are going to go. And so if you're in town, we encourage you to come out. We will be covering those for those of you that live out of town and can't make the games. But there's a lot going on. There's certainly a lot going on. Of course, we're wrapping up this portal stuff. As I mentioned top of the show, first team meeting of 2025 took place today. And, we've got some guys that are still on their way here. Drop ad dates are about a week away. But first day of class today, and not everybody made it in time for the first day, but the bulk of your roster is here, and we begin to kind of, set the dot to kind of change things as we move forward. Kind of flashing back to the portal just a little bit. We know we got to take a corner and probably an offensive tackle somewhere. So unless a name or two just kind of pops up here late, it's going to be the spring. Portal open again on April the 16th, and we'll have some guys leave. We're tracking all that pretty closely, as you guys are well aware. But spring practice will be here before you know it. And then it'll be a maroon and white game for, to wrap up spring practice because, there's no off season anymore. There really isn't. You think about like right now for these guys, they're already working through their, off season conditioning drills and working with our nutrition staff and kind of figuring out what worked for them, how to prepare food and things like that, and not just live off of fast food out there, but to eat healthier. Then we'll get into spring practice. We'll adjust the roster again in the spring portal. And then before you know it, we're in the middle of all these, junior events. We've had a big junior day last weekend. We'll have a few guys in this week. And then, the February 1st one will be a huge one, probably the first really, really big one that we have. And then we got the prospect camps of June and official visits, and the guys that are visiting and already as accomplished recruits, they're not going to be taken in camps, but there will be some names that emerge in camps. But by and large, these days, it's more about the underclassmen trying to figure out what they can do and who you want to offer. And then we're in the fall camp, and then the season's here. And then we're back into the December signing period. And so if you're following college football nowadays, it's 365 days a year. There's always something to watch, whether it be, practice reports, games themselves, recruiting. The portal season has been wild for us. I mean, the last 6 weeks has been just nose to the grindstone for me and everybody on our staff. And I got up today and I thought, today is a day of gratitude because of the fact we get Anthony Evans today one way or another. It's all going to be finalized today. And then, we can kind of take a breath a little bit. But, there's new offers popping up every day. And so, the job doesn't change. The names change. But the job for us never really changes. And I take a lot of pride in what we do. And it's so interesting, you spend so much time typing and talking and trying to, spread information about Mississippi State. And there's been no shortage of information the last few weeks. And then you start thinking, okay, we got a little bit of time to kind of catch our breath. Well, we're in the middle of SEC play in men's or women's basketball. And then, less than a month from today, baseball is going to be here. So if you're a Mississippi State fan, there's just not a lot of time off. And I think at times there can be a little bit of information overload. There's just so much going on, and there's so many people covering things these days that if you want to find something about Mississippi State, there's always something fresh. And I think we do a great job of covering all that over at genespage.com. We wish you'd come join us. You can get 30% off the annual subscription price right now. And I don't believe anybody did a better job covering the portal than we did. And of the 23 commitments, we had interviews with 21 of the 23. The only two that we didn't get, of course, Anthony Evans from today, and then Jerron Glover from Michigan State. Just not a big talker. But we're able to get one-on-one interviews with everybody else, and you can go read those for free. As those guys commit to Mississippi State, we did our best, to kind of share that with you, because we want you to kind of get to know these guys a little bit and begin to kind of fall in love with the players that chose us to spend the rest of their college career with. I think that is an important aspect of it. It's not just names on a roster, but, when you begin to read about Dwight Lewis's story, about, he would have probably spent his final year there at Marion with his friends and tried to chase a championship. But he got married, he got a baby on the way, and he goes, you know what? I got to make the adult decision here and go see if I can improve my own draft stock, but also, too, put myself in a situation where I can take care of my wife and child. And I think that is something that is to be commended. In a day and age where there are so many young people out there that are, hey, look at me for who I am and what I can do for you on the football field, to see a guy make an adult decision like that and ultimately choose Mississippi State over Arizona and Wisconsin, out of over 60 schools that contacted him with offers and interest, and he chose us. And I think it's important for you guys to kind of get to know them a little bit. And, one of the things that I have learned, somebody shared this with me a long time ago, and I haven't forgotten it. In times it'll kind of pop back up. It's like everybody's a little bit jealous of what you have, but they're not always jealous of what it took for you to get it. And when I think about these players, there's a lot of that too. And there's a lot of those players that ride at a high level, and they've been born with some natural ability, but also too, they've worked extremely hard to put themselves in a position to get the accolades that go along with being a major college athlete. And so some people, I tell you, I panicked a little bit, as we begin to enter this new era of compensation in college athletics. But I can tell you, speaking to some people on campus, this new rev share thing hadn't been officially approved yet, but it will be, this new settlement. But there are a lot of people now that think, no, in the end, we're going to be okay with this at Mississippi State. We're not going to just get washed away. And, of course, the concern comes in when, you got $20.5 million to work with in rev share. What do you do when the quarterback starts holding you hostage and say, hey, you're paying me this, but I'm going to need twice that next year? Well, what do? Do people then supplement that with NIL? Do they supplement it with some dark money? And there are going to be people that are going to try to get around the rev share. And there's a legal way to do it and a non-legal way to do it. And it's stupid to go out there and do things that are inappropriate. But I think it's important to understand this is a new age for us, but I do believe Mississippi State has maybe treaded water long enough to kind of figure out a way that this thing works. But it's interesting that so many people are asking for federal intervention now, because that's something that we pretty much identified in the beginning, that it was going to take, basically a federal law to level the playing field. And I think at some point that's going to happen. The fact that there's so many people talking about it now, I think, is an important aspect. You remember Nick Saban and Zach Arnett and those guys 2 years ago went to Capitol Hill to kind of lobby those people, but I think now people see the mess that we're in, that we're going to need some federal oversight. And again, like Ronald Reagan said, one of the things you always hate to hear is, I'm from the federal government and I'm here to help. Doesn't always work out that way. That's important to understand too. There's just so many things out there that have changed, and we are in the evolution of all of that. And at some point, things will calm down, and you'll get more comfortable with that aspect of it too. I can tell you there's been a lot of enthusiasm from our fans about our portal efforts, and I think the staff on and off the field needs to be commended for the work they've done to kind of right the ship here. Now it's time to go coach these guys up and go win some football games. If you hadn't done so, go to dutynoblebook.com and you can order signed copies of The Dude. All my sports titles are there. They're all signed, along with When the Bottom Falls. And we'd love for you to come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. If you've never tried it, you owe it to yourself. I understand recently that they did some giveaways at Pine Lake here in Starkville. And, one of our members gave kind of an impassioned speech about how great floating has been for them in their lives. So if you're a person that just needs a break, or maybe you suffer with chronic anxiety or pain, we may be able to help you. A lot of our regular floaters are people that have had these issues and have dealt with them and have found a measure of relief. Dial 662-268-7601 for more information. And as always, I appreciate you guys more than I can ever say. You guys know how to make a small town boy from South Mississippi feel awfully special. But, we're going to be getting to work soon on the new book. We'll have some announcements about that. And so, this time next year we'll be, celebrating hopefully a book going #1 again. That's always the goal. But the reality of it is to kind of share knowledge as best we can with you guys. And I can promise you I'm not perfect with that. Sometimes I go back and kind of self-scout myself and read some of my books, and I'll find a mistake that I made. And, we try to correct it in subsequent printings. But I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I have feelings too, You love it when everybody tells you you're doing great. When people tell you you're not, it's unsettling. But the reality of it is you take it all in and just try to be better the next time. And so we're going to be doing our best to give you the best job possible over at Gene's Page, the Boneyard, and any of the books that we write, doing our best to tell the Mississippi State story one day at a time. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.